Welcome to AEC Stories. This is former SM3 Dempsey of the USS Mount Hood podcast. Today we go deep into the beginning of the USS Mount Hood, 1972. And we have former PN3 Warwick today. I just want to say welcome aboard and thanks for figuring out how to do this over the computer with me. How are you doing today? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So, was the Mount Hood your first ship?
That was my first and only ship. I got on in August of 72.
Oh, fantastic. So tell me how you came to join the Navy, and you told me there was some family history, so maybe we could start there.
Well, sure. My grandma's brother was on the USS Houston in World War II, and he died in the Battle of Sunda Strait, and that's where I got my name from. And then my dad's brother served in the Korean War, and then I enlisted. So,
wow, tradition.
That's how that went. Yeah.
And they were all sailors, huh?
All sailors. One was electrician, one was a boiler tech, and I signed up to do dispersing clerk, and my clerical score stunk, so they made me a personnelman. And now I run heavy equipment, so you can imagine that really wasn't my personality, sitting at a desk.
What we think we want when we're younger doesn't always translate. And you know, as a former signalman, it had nothing to do with my career and everything else that I did later, except maybe the communication part, communicating with people.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, if we were a signalman / radio host, that might have helped.
There you go. You bet.
So, I mean, you were on the Mount Hood, but I want to find out more about boot camp and how old were you when you joined the military, joined the Navy?
I signed up at 18. It was a cash delay program at the time. I signed it up in October, and then I went in March to San Diego.
Okay. San Diego, and you were from, where are you from originally?
I'm from northern Iowa. I went into the local draft board the morning they were going to ship me out to Des Moines, and she asked me where I wanted to go, Great Lakes or San Diego, and we just had 3 inches of snow, and I said, I'm going to San Diego.
That was a given. I think I would have taken the same choice, but I ended up in Great Lakes not thinking that it mattered that much. I was like, you know, in the wintertime.
Yeah, oh boy. Well, we went to a Cubs game this spring, and it was 45 degrees, and it was chilly. But you know, we're used to the cold. But
wow. So you went to boot camp. Was that like a big change to you, or was it what you expected as a young man coming into boot camp in San Diego?
Well, I don't want to say I was disappointed. I thought it would be a little harder than it was. But yeah. I didn't expect any of it, or, you know, people hollering, you know.
You can't watch YouTube videos on it like we can today. Back then it was all mysterious, right?
Right. Yeah. You just, you know, we stood out in the sun for hours getting clothes, and, you know, it was interesting.
Were you ever at any time, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go ahead.
Were you ever at any time questioning your choice, like, why did I do this, when you're halfway through it?
Oh, kind of, but not really. I think a lot of us had the feeling when boot camp was over, we were going to go home. But, you know, 3 years and 10 months later.
Right. Did you get to pick your A school from your recruiter initially?
Not really. He kind of signed me up for things that I'd ask about, but basically when I got to boot camp, you know, they had you fill out what you wanted to be, and I think the yeoman or personnelman there put YNPN down for me. Okay. And my best test scores were mechanical and sonar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, of course, I wouldn't be a sonarman now with my ears.
Oh, my vision isn't as what it once was. We used to have 20/20 for signalmen. So yeah, our skills are kind of deteriorating a little bit.
Yeah. I made Eagle Scout and I had to do semaphore.
Oh, really?
So I got fairly decent semaphore when I watched it during unreps. I would watch the signalman now and then. I was on the bridge as phone talker, and I would watch the signalman, catch a little bit of it. They were so fast, that.
Yeah, that was we had to train up for that speed. That was like your rank was kind of based on speed of transmission and reading accuracy,
Mm-hmm.
And the more you did it, the more fluent you got. It seemed.
Yeah. Yep. Bet.
A school was very slow and basic, and then you get to the fleet, and then it gets real.
Yeah. And, see, probably for you too. I'm not sure, but A school doing for personnelman was kind of being in the Navy, but yet not. And then you get on the ship, and first thing I'm throwing is a phone talker for CNA anchor detail. I had no clue what I was doing. You'll learn quick.
Very, very disorienting. Okay, you put the propeller on the helicopter. Huh? What?
Yeah. What? Mm-hmm.
So, where was your A school at?
San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, I went home after boot camp and then right back to A school, and I came home right after A school, and then this is another story you won't believe, but we were leaving A school, and the lady at the Navy base there was getting our flight stuff ready to go. And she looked at my orders and said, Concord, California. She had no clue where it was. She flies me into Fresno, California.
Oh, God.
Which, how far is that from the Bay Area, So I rode a bus. I rode a bus back to Oakland.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so then I had to ride a bus back to the Naval Weapons Station there. Mount Hood's already over in Vietnam, so I rode a different ship. I rode a different ship overseas.
What ship was that?
That was the Mauna Kea, AE-22.
So another ammo ship just took you on board and said, "You're a passenger now. Get on board, huh?"
Yep. I was in the barracks there in Concord. Just watched a movie, and this big kid comes walking in. Anybody going to the Mount Hood? And I said, yeah. So him and I, we ended up best friends. And a couple weeks ago, I met with him and that signalman friend of mine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to those guys too, because I'm trying to document your history, but you guys are my sea ancestors,
Yeah, I like that. I missed the whole being a plank owner by like a year, and I always wished I could have done that. But when we got on the Mount Hood, they were all reservists, just about all of them.
Oh wow!
They were 2 year, so except for the lifers, but they were all 2 year reservists, and short timers, and they had kind of poor attitudes.
I can imagine. But the Mount Hood was, so it was like a lot of lifer chiefs and LPOs, and everyone else was reservists like seamen and stuff?
Yeah, yep. Third class,
Okay.
Third class and seamen. Yep.
My goodness. So you guys headed, did you meet them over in Vietnam, or did you stop in Hawaii or PI on the way over there, or Guam?
We stopped in Subic Bay, and we were there maybe 4 days in transient barracks. They just had a typhoon there, and it was a mess. That's what we ended up doing, cleaning up the barracks. And then the Mount Hood came in, loaded up with ammo, and off to the gun line we went. So,
my goodness. So what was it like? You went right out of PI after a hurricane, and everything was more, your mind was somewhere else. Because I remember you're heading towards a war zone. And I remember just before Desert Storm heading to the war from PI. So yeah, it's a similar experience, even though it's many years apart, Yeah.
And I don't ever remember any of us being afraid of anything, or, it just, let's go do this,
Yeah, you didn't have time to think. Had you not went straight over there, I already had a couple years of liberty, and life in the Navy seemed like a cruise of curiosity. Like, oh, we're in San Diego, let's go have some liberty. We're in.
Yeah.
Right?
Didn't you love ref tray there?
Oh my goodness, that was fun sometimes, but that's really when they maxed out all your drills and stuff. So you didn't get a lot of rest. You were always fire drilling or battle stationing, or keep your eyes out and see if the Navy SEALs sneak on your ship, or catch the incoming airplanes or whatever, spot them.
Yeah. Well, my battle station at that time was on the signal bridge as the lookout. So you can imagine being in San Diego trying to report all these little boats. How do you report this stuff, But
we get a surfer 020. Oh, madman in a kayak.
Yeah, no kidding. That was about it. Yep.
What else was there? But so I just remember, so you went right to the war zone. I went screw around, taste of San Francisco, the nightlife, the parties, the Alameda area, which we'll backtrack to after. But how long did they have you guys sitting there up in Vietnam?
Usually it was like, 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'd go back to the Philippines and get more ammo, party our butts off, and drink San Miguel, and then back to the gun line and do it again. And I got there just when Operation Linebacker 1 ended. And then in December, they started what they call Christmas bombings, which was Operation Linebacker 2. And, and man, we just bombed the crap out of stuff. We were out there Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. We were out there.
Did you guys have any close encounters with little sneaky boats out there when you're floating around the area? Or were you guys far enough off the coast not to be too close to any of the bad action there?
Well, most of the time, Len, we were at Yankee Station. That was probably 20 miles out. But sometimes we'd get quite a bit closer. And once we had North Vietnamese gunboats come out from shore, and we went to general quarters, and the officer deck was a young ensign. Of course, I was 19 too, and he saw they're not going to hurt unless they're dead in the water. They can't fire. And CIC says gunboats are dead in the water, and that guy turned whiter than a ghost.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. So, and we had some MiGs fly kind of close one time too, but most of the time we were about 20 miles out.
That was a very interesting time in history. I mean, that war, all the bad guys were being fed all their ammunition and their weapons from the Soviets. What's a proxy war? I think that's what you call it. Kind of like we did in Afghanistan with the Taliban to the Russian army.
Yep.
It's like, we're going to outsource another team to play for us, but we're going to give them all the pads and the helmets.
Yeah.
And,
of course, we were there, and then the peace treaty was signed, and I mean, we were really close. At one time, it was probably November, December, we started pulling into Da Nang, and for some reason they told us to get out. I don't remember what, but I mean, I could have thrown a baseball almost and hit land.
Oh my goodness.
Back then I could have thrown the baseball that far.
So it was, must have been an interesting time. I mean, you guys probably didn't have televisions in your berthing. You guys probably had film on the mess decks, I'm guessing. I mean, what was the entertainment like on the ship?
Yeah, we had mess deck, had a projector, and we watched movies every night at, I think, 8 o'clock or something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, of course.
Was mail?
Go ahead.
Was mail call kind of far and few between? Along with, I mean, I'm going to let you roll. I don't mean to speak over you, but was mail call kind of like? Was it pretty consistent because you were close to a battle group, or was there like that unhingedness there?
Yeah, maybe every 4 or 5 days. That kind of slips my memory. Sometimes it might have been longer.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on how far out at sea we were, but we had 2 CH-46s on there to do vert rep. You probably had them then too.
Yeah.
And they'd go into Da Nang, get the mail, and come out, and we'd get it to other ships, or they'd get it to us, or stuff like that.
What a trip!
So, yeah,
such a different. Good.
Oh no, I was just going to say we didn't think much of it. We just were doing our thing, and
repping. Doing a lot of mainly vert, or did you guys do any unreps out there? You'd have to go further out to sea to do those.
Yeah, we were at Yankee Station mostly when we did them, but there was times we did unrep and vert rep kind of at the same time. Believe it or not.
Oh my goodness.
Sometimes two ships alongside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really one of my
cool
former
watching,
my former ops boss.
Go ahead.
Oh, you had a lot of destroyers you were loading up out there?
Yeah, we did a lot of destroyers. You have to look up Newport News. We were there when they blew up, the gun mount got blown up. And that was pretty sad. We were out at sea with them, and we pulled in, and they were in the Philippines. So
what happened to them? Newport News.
Well, there was a gun mount, and I'm not sure what happened. I don't know. I don't remember if it was electrical or some fire got in there, and it killed 19 sailors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was in October '72.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's there's so many questions I have, because I had a lot of Vietnam veteran friends who later got jobs, because I grew up as a military brat, and they were been door gunners and different things in Nam. And a lot of them went through a lot of PTSD and stuff, and you had to be careful when you're out drinking with them, because they could flip a switch on you sometimes.
Sure.
And
sure.
I understand it years later, and I have a lot of empathy, I really understand,
Yeah. Yep.
So much going on. I mean, you're in a war. You've got the country against you when you come home. You're kind of trapped in the middle of it all. And it must have been such a hard time, man. I mean,
we never got spit on or any of that, but the people in the Bay Area really didn't much care for us, I mean, we obviously, they could tell the way we walked that we were sailors, and haircuts and,
Yeah.
Course,
you had a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, Admiral Zumwalt let us have pretty long hair and beard. So, sometimes we had a beard, sometimes we didn't. My hair's shorter now than it was then.
So Zumwalt was in charge back then?
Yeah, he was a CNO then, yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So you guys get to be kind of groovy back then with your beards and your long hair. So if you went out to all the great music festivals that were happening at the time, you kind of fit in a little better.
I really did. And I can remember, Cow Palace, how we drove by that. Led Zeppelin was there. And I thought, man, we should have gone to that. But I didn't.
Wow.
But, yeah.
My timeline was a lot different, but I caught the Grateful Dead on my way to the ship with Jerry Garcia still alive.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, right after A school. So I'm like, I got a little bit of that, but I kind of became acclimated with the Vietnam veterans a lot, like where I lived, because they got jobs as helicopter mechanics on the base and stuff like that. They didn't want to go back stateside.
Yep.
So how long were you over there in the Vietnam area?
Well, we went in, the Mount Hood was actually there from April 72 to April 73. And then we came home and we headed back overseas right away after 6 months. And I tell you, the guys that were older guys, they were rather upset about it all. Married guys, you can't blame them. But in the fall of 73, we were in the Mideast crisis, and we were, like real close to Saudi Arabia and all that.
Yeah.
And we were out of sea like 45 days that time.
Beer time.
Yeah, we ran out of cigarettes, and at that time I smoked, which I don't now, but
Yeah, it was one of the only forms of entertainment out there.
Yeah, pretty much. We'd go out on the flight deck and lounge around, smoke cigarettes. And, a signalman friend and I, we'd went up on the signal bridge and lift weights. At that time, in the front of the signal bridge, there was a kind of a mast thing. I don't remember what that was for, but we could open the hatch and we threw all our weights in there.
Oh yeah, it was there when I was there on the signal bridge. It was kind of round.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and you open it up and it had like the pegs. You clamp it down, like 4 of them to open it up, and it was like a. Go ahead.
I don't know what it was for, but when we went up in Haiphong Harbor, kind of close there in '72, we had condition 4, which was called wartime cruising, and that was my station. I stood watch up there. I'd crawl inside that thing and sit around in there for a while, get out of the weather or whatever.
Yeah, it was like a isolation chamber of sorts.
Yeah, Vietnam weather was crazy. We'd be hotter than blazes and stand out there unwrapping, pretty soon raining and cold. And
wow, that's such a different experience. But it's interesting to hear. Like we were on the same ship. You were on there in the 70s. I got there in the late 80s, but it was the same ship. And the way I look at the podcast is that we were all on the same TV series, just at different episodes and at different timelines.
You might say we're all in the same boat. I said that to a submariner one time and ticked him off because they call submarines boats, not ships. A ship,
Wow. I mean, this is just a different time. I mean, the drinking age in America was probably 18, so you guys never had any problem with going out to bars. When I was in, it was 21. So
yeah, it was
probably changed.
It was 21 when I was in. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, we couldn't drink. Yeah, we couldn't drink on shore. I mean, we had to go to the EM Club and drink beer or whiskey, whatever.
Oh, so they let you do it on base back then, right?
Yeah, yep. We had enlisted men's club. And then they had a PO club, and they didn't in Concord, but a lot of bigger bases had a PO club.
Oh, Alameda. Did you guys go over to Alameda?
Yeah, in fact, when I got out, the ship was dry docked in Alameda. I think the last 2 months I was in the Navy, we slept on a barge that they had, a big sleeping barge. Well, it was kind of neat. It was away from everything, and just, of course, my buddies all got discharged, and I was there with a bunch of new guys, and,
You knew what was going on. You were leading them around, huh?
Yeah. I knew what they were in for. Yep.
So, did you stay in California when you got out, or did you just go right back home to Iowa?
No, actually, I came home. I came home to a wedding in Kansas, Topeka, Kansas, for my signalman friend, and I met my future wife there. And I lived in Kansas City for a year, and then I moved up back to northern Iowa.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what was it you think that kept you from being a lifer? Did you feel like you'd get enough out of those almost 4 years in?
Yeah, I tell you, Lynn, we did 3 tours in the 4 years I was in, and I thought, man, I can't be doing this.
Yeah, it's not always at that pace, but if that's your first experience, that's what you're going to think it is. You're like, yeah, fool me again.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we came back home in '74, and then '75 we headed back over there. We ended up in Operation Frequent Wind with the evacuation of Vietnam. So just helter skelter. It seemed like all the time.
Were you pulling refugees onto the boat? Is that what you were doing, or what was going on with that?
No, they wouldn't let them on our ship for some reason, but we were there with the Hancock. That's where the helicopters all landed on it, and
yeah,
we could just watch all of it coming apart. And
oh my,
I wished I'd have had a video camera like I have now that you could have recorded all of this. Just people just wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's why we have the podcast, because we need you to tell the story, because there's so much that was never caught on film. I mean, today people have cell phones. They, if they're 19 years old, they probably have 10,000 pictures. Me, growing up in the 70s and 80s, there's a lot of blank spots where no photos were ever taken of great events. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no 90s. Kidding. Yeah. I thought I took a lot of pictures, and I get my pictures out, and I don't have anything hardly,
Right? I think I have 5 or 6 of my Navy time. And occasionally a shipmate will post something. I'm like, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we did a lot of good ports. I mean, we went to Singapore and Hong Kong and Taiwan and,
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Hong Kong was pretty cool back then. Is that back when people used to go buy that gold Rolex back in the day?
Yeah, we bought clothes, and I bought this pair of pants and a shirt, and it was called a Ponderosa shirt, kind of like the Bonanza thing, And
yeah.
I washed the pants, and the pants just about went up to my knees. So that all ended up in the ocean, probably.
Oh my goodness. So what was the soundtrack of your era? What kind of music was going on the ship? Do you have a soundtrack? Because a lot of people remember what music they were listening to for some reason.
Well, of course, there was a lot of Motown with the black guys, and I liked some of that. And, of course, Led Zeppelin, The Who, the Guess Who, and I started listening to the country.
Yeah.
Kind of after I got to the Philippines, because that's where my friend and I hung out. Merle Haggard, Charlie Pride.
Wow. Yeah, I remember the Philippines. We had a soundtrack. It was a more R&B, and rock was just changing. It was late 80s to the 90s, but I grew up, you were in the Woodstock era, so you guys probably had Hendrix and all the folk bands and the rock and the Zeppelins, and what a trip.
Yeah, you bet.
So what was your favorite port that you pulled in there?
Well, for partying, I'd have to say Subic Bay. Because it was cheap. You go buy a case of beer for $3, and you could take a couple days liberty, go stay in a hotel somewhere, and just trip around, I guess. But the other place, go ahead.
They were too expensive?
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say too expensive. The Philippines was cheaper.
Yeah.
I didn't know then. I was cheapskate then.
Yeah, I liked PI. It was it made you feel like Richie Rich. You felt like you had a lot of money back then. And especially after being in San Francisco, you felt like, oh, my paycheck goes 3 days out here. It doesn't go very far. It gets bad dollars per gallon out here.
Yeah. Yep. For a while, our ship was in San Francisco in the shipyards once, and we stayed in an apartment in Concord. And it was funny, when you go to San Francisco, it'd be like 60, 70 degrees, and you go to Concord, it might be 85, 90. It was just weird.
Yeah, the two climates. Well, you get that cool fog rolling off the bay, and my wife likes San Francisco more, but I live on the East Bay, and it gets hot, so she likes to, let's go over there. I'm like, okay, but I don't know. She's from Siberia, so of course,
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little cooler weather. Yeah, it's an ironic change for me. I was hunting for Russian spy ships as a young man, and then I end up marrying a Russian woman. How interesting, huh?
That's cool. Yeah. No
irony, I love it.
My wife's family comes up from Kansas, and they call this the tundra up here. In the wintertime, it gets pretty cold, but.
So you've stayed friends with your two buddies from the Mount Hood this whole time? Yeah.
Yep. And I tell you something, you get on Facebook, I've connected with so many of my other shipmates on Facebook. It's unreal.
Wow.
And I tell you, when we get done talking, next time I see the podcast, I'm going to share that with some of my shipmates that I was on with.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There's been a couple of clips in this recording. But if it comes out good enough, I'll release that part for the most part. And at worst case, we'll do another one, but we get the technology down. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Cause sometimes it's the connection and all that. And even people listening to me, even if I let this part out there, they're just getting to know us as people. We're just people talking. And that's what they like about a podcast, because I'm not like using the fake radio voice like, yeah, coming up on the hour in 5 minutes, the Mount Hood.
Yeah. Yeah,
this is Casey Kasem. Got 40 ships to ride on in this.
You bet. Well, we had TV. We had TV in the cruise lounge, and when we were in the Bay Area or close to the States, we could watch TV.
Yeah.
And in 1975, we were watching the Red Sox. It would have been Cincinnati Reds playing, and our captain stayed close enough to shore that we could watch that one game. So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty neat. I remember my cousin was playing in the World Series. I come from a baseball family, so my father came close to going to the pros. His brother-in-law did, and then his nephew got into the Yankees. So they were playing, and we were sitting in ref tray or something, just listening to play. I'm like, wow, look at him go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's my favorite team is the Yankees. So
that was,
I grew up with Mickey Mantle, Roger. Go ahead.
Mike Pagarulo was my cousin, is my cousin still. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pags.
Sure.
Yeah.
Pag. Yep.
Replace Nettles.
Yep. Oh, that was awesome. I like Greg Nettles, but I grew up with the Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, Whitey Ford days, So kind of hung on to the Yankees.
Have you been to the Bay Area since you get out?
I went in 96. We flew to San Francisco, and we were on a kind of a bus tour, went up to Vancouver, and then we did the Inside Passage on the Holland America ship. And I told my wife, I said, this is just going to be like glass. And the second night out, we hit a windstorm that's not very typical of that time of year. But, I mean, it rocked and rolled. And
oh, my.
I said, well, I've been there. We went through 2 typhoons on the hood. So, 20-some to almost 30-degree rolls. That was kind of a fun time.
You're walking on the side of the bulkheads, walking up the walls like Spider-Man, right?
Yep. I think we had cold meat sandwiches for a couple of days because pretty much everybody just laid in bed.
We're not going to have any upside down corn or chili mac tonight on the mess decks.
I tried to make chili mac for my Navy buddy when he came back to Iowa. It didn't turn out like they had on the Mount Hood.
Some people miss that chow. I, for some reason, don't, but I don't know. I grew up in Italy, so I had a nice palate for good food. They make great food there. So I was like, this shit's pretty basic, but it depends where you came from. There was guys, on another podcast who, my friend told me about, and it'll pop up another podcast, basically how he was like from the backwoods in Appalachia. And he was like at the boot camp, and they're going in, and the guy only had one pair of shoes, and he's looking at the mess hall like, I could have all this food.
I never went hungry. We never had a lot, but I never went hungry. But I don't miss the Mount Hood food much. Chili mac I like,
Yeah. It's an acquired taste. I don't think we're going to be opening up any chili mac restaurants unless it's outside of a bar where people are looking for hangover food.
Yeah, there you go. I had a friend of mine that was a Navy cook in the late 70s. I said, why was that coffee so rotten? And he said, they put the amount of coffee that the can called for, which, most of us used a third of that amount. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it laid in them big coffee dispenser and burned all day.
Oh, yeah. We had good coffee on the Signal Bridge, man. That was one of the best parts of it. And we had a big old coffee machine. It was rocking and rolling.
Oh, cool.
So
Go I was going to say, I hung around on the signal bridge a lot, after work. We'd go up there and smoke cigarettes and listen to reel-to-reel rock and roll or country, whatever, and
wow,
drink Coca-Colas and
sea stories.
Yeah, they had a canteen right there, kind of by the mess deck.
Mm-hmm.
That's still there.
Oh, we called it the ship store later on. Yeah, where they sold the Gee Dunk, all the candy and the cigarettes and all that.
Yep, the ship store was down one level. I stayed on the 03 level most of the time.
Okay.
And the ship store was down on the 02 deck, so it was one down.
The canteen, was that like an extra mid-rats kind of thing, an extra?
No, it had Gee Dunk pop and Vienna sausage and candy and stuff like that. So.
Okay. That kept you going, though. I mean, I remember just eating endless Gee Dunk, as we called it. Whoever invented that name, he was very creative. Probably came over with a hangover and says, "We're going to call that Gee Dunk."
Probably. My uncle was on a AKA, which is kind of I think it was a personnel carrier, kind of a cargo ship. And that's what he called it, too, was Gee Dunk. So.
Yeah. They had that similar terminology. So what did your other buddies end up doing after the Navy? Your signalman friend. I'm curious what the other signalman ended up doing.
Signalman friend of mine worked for the VA for a little while, and then he started his own business, trucking asphalt and rock and stuff like that. And my quartermaster friend, he was a prison guard. He just retired this summer.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bad guy, but he couldn't keep his mouth quiet sometimes and get him in trouble. And I didn't think but he ended up staying as a naval reservist in a National Guard and retired from that. So,
wow, it's funny. Like when you're young, you're like, that guy ain't gonna make it, and he ends up going further. It's like a couple that I knew, like, there's no way they're going to stay married, and they outlasted me twice over. So, kind of hard to call the ball till time runs by sometimes, Yep.
Well, I've been married 41 years, so.
Oh man.
Yep.
That's congrats on that. It's a fine skill set you got there.
Yeah.
So the signalman was there, and they're going to discover the podcast. So that's going to be cool. I mean, me and the signalman that I was on the ship with, we're pretty tight. I'm going to visit one next week. But it's interesting. A lot of guys became prison guards. A lot of guys went into now they're going into high tech more, like IT and stuff like that.
Sure,
but a lot of sheriffs, a lot of cops, a lot of policemen, lifers, there's just a variety. But now the Navy's not geared as much towards a 20-year career as it used to be, because things change with different politics and so forth,
Sure.
It's not the incentive.
Bad in a way.
It is.
Boy,
it is.
What about these ships crashing together? It's like, come on.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I'm not laughing at the poor guys that died. I'm just like, what the hell were you thinking? I did 2 podcasts on this. I did one called Signalman of the Watch, and you can listen to them. And the other one I did was We Can Prevent Collisions, because really in 2003, they removed the signalman rating. And we were like the ultimate lookout. Yeah. So you get a little too high tech. And, it's like if I give you a gun that does automatic sighting and hits targets, one day the battery dies and you get a hunt for food and you never learn to shoot. Well, how good are you? You got to keep that human element, right?
Yep. Yeah, they took that out of there. And I think that's why they're having these accidents like that. There were just not enough lookouts.
It's interesting because you stood a hardcore lookout. You remember how important it was. You've been in a war zone where you had to watch out for little sneaky boats and gunboats and all that stuff on watch. And just like I did, you know the importance of that watch. You're like, what else were you doing to not see that stuff? I mean, were you thinking of anything else? Because that's all I was focused on, right?
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if your personnelman did it, but we didn't stand lookout watches. And bridge or any of that, you know. During general quarters and, you know, sea and anchor or unreps, you know, I was on the bridge, but otherwise we didn't stand watching.
Oh, not normally. No, sea and anchor and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, but the signalman.
I was going to say I did petty officer of the watch when we were in port, and then I did shore patrol in the Philippines, you know, after I did PO. So.
Yeah, that was fun. I get pictures of my buddies in their shore patrol uniforms with a San Miguel in their hand.
There you go.
Whatever this preventative measure, you know, some things need to be upgraded. Like, we're going to give these guys, a couple knuckleheads, some table legs and call them nightsticks, give them no formal training and tell them to go out there and club anybody who's getting in a fight. And let's see how that carries.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Absolutely no training.
I remember standing watch in Concord on the pier, you know, when I was like an E3 or something with the good old nightstick in a belt. And I'm like, what am I going to do if a real bad guy rolls up with me, you know, loaded? Halt. Yeah. I will beat you with this stick. Yeah. Send me. Yep.
Yeah. I did make couple of friends that were Marines, you know, and that quartermaster friend of mine played football with him. And I tried to get on that team, but my LPO wouldn't let me do it. So
that would have been fun.
Yeah.
So, how much time did you spend in California getting to know the Bay Area in port?
Well, probably out of 4 years, I might have been there like 23 months.
Yeah.
So we knew Concord really well, and we'd go to San Francisco and, I don't know, we went to wax museums and Telegraph Hill and just, you know.
Well, what was the seedy area? Broadway, right? Back then in the 70s?
Yeah, yep.
Like another... Huh?
Well, especially like San Diego, you know, we went down to the strip there, you know, where all the photo shops were and tattoo parlors. And,
yeah. We you know, as sailors, wherever we parked, a seedy part of town would often spark up right around that area. You know, all the hustlers and drug dealers and pimps and everything would be rolling right outside the gate waiting for you and your paycheck. You know, like,
Yep.
Well, you know, my era was a little different, but we had different people. We had Scientologists trying to recruit sailors.
Well, actually, this quartermaster friend of mine, Chuck is his name, and I don't know why, we were just stumbling around in San Diego, and Scientologist woman picked us up, and we went and took the test, you know, and all that stuff.
She was probably very attractive as well, because
she was.
That's the game. No, it was beautiful girls in a car. Come on, we're going to a meeting. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, she was just kind of walking around. We were like 2 or 3 blocks from that building, you know, and when we came out, she was walking with us, and the San Diego police stopped us, and they said they wanted to frisk us. So put your hands out to the side, and both of us held our hands up. No, don't put your hands up.
Oh my, it's such a trip. I mean, the things that were going on. I mean, and even when I went to boot camp in Chicago, there was cults, there was hustlers, con men. They would sell these people a camera with a lifetime supply of film, and they would finance it, and it would cost more than a Volkswagen, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a crappy piece of crap camera, non-brand.
Yeah. You know, and they warned us in boot camp and A school both about doing that stuff. So I never went and got a picture taken. A lot of my friends did, you know, in their flight jacket with their white hat or whatever on.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. I kind of wished I would have now, but.
Well, it was, you know, I remember, so I wasn't drinking age, but I was in Chicago, and I had already mapped it out because I'd already grew up all around the world. So I was pretty intuitive what to do. I wasn't your typical rookie. So I saw these limos. I go, hey, let's all chip in and rent a limo. And I go, then I'm going to get the limo driver to buy us beer. So we were cruising in a limo right out of our 1, 2, 3 days of liberty in boot camp after the couple month period or whatever that was. and, the guy's cruising us around, and we're downtown Chicago, and we try to go into the Hard Rock Cafe, and they're not having it. We don't have IDs, and we look like babies. So we're out there. Yep. We're out there sitting in the limo through the sunroof, snow hitting us in the head, chugging beers. And these little kids, like 9 or 11 years old, we're parked on the bad side of town. They're like, "Hey, man, you want to buy a cell phone?" And they had those big brick cell phones. Look, I got 3 of them. I'll sell you one right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, the carnival never stops.
It didn't.
Oh, that's the thing. Where was the adventure that the Navy advertised? Some of it was at general quarters in the war zone and all that. But mostly the adventure was import in some seedy part of town and just getting out of there alive.
Yeah, no kidding. Yep. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Oh, well, historically, where you were at and out here, you had the electric Kool-Aid acid test going on around here. What was the name of those Merry Marauders or whatever the heck? All those LSD hippies cruising around the Haight-Ashbury. You had just so many different cults and groups and gangs and so much going on. It's like we look at the country today where everybody's fighting everybody on Facebook, being divided and conquered, right? And that era is very reflective of this era, except this time we do it all by computer, huh?
Yeah, right. And for some reason we just didn't run into people like that much. We just kind of did our own thing, and
Wow. I don't know. I picture it more like the movie The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he was the signalman brig chaser. I'm like, yeah, that's the Navy.
Yeah. Have you seen Cinderella Liberty?
I don't know. I love being in the Navy. I never knew that I would join it. I grew up on an Army base. I was thinking about becoming an airborne ranger, but I just as a kid, I get in too much trouble with the MPs on the base. And I'm like, I don't like these MPs. They'll probably screw with me when I'm a soldier too, but they were just doing their job, but I was a punk. So it makes sense. But I ended up joining the Navy because I didn't want to join the Army. The Air Force was too uptight. And the Marines, well, my dad was a Marine, so I didn't want to go join my dad. So there was the Navy, and there's a handsome guy with 2 beautiful women sitting in his office going, "This is how it is, brother." Like Frank Sinatra was waiting for me.
Yeah. No kidding. Yep.
I'm like,
join the Navy. Join the Navy, see the world, but they forgot to tell you 2/3 of the world is water, right?
Yeah, that's so true. I love the ocean. That's why I live near it. I always go check it out. I go out to Half Moon Bay like every other week or so just to see the waves, man. I miss it. And, probably why I haven't been able to leave it. But, it was some of the greatest experiences of my life. And I have a friend that I'll probably cut his audio in, who's a civilian, and he's been listening to the podcast, and he's like, "Hey, how's Chief Hill doing?" I go, "Huh? That was my chief who was super strict, SMC."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "How do you know Chief?" "Oh, wait, you're a podcast fan now. I get it." So
yeah,
that's what that's what Tony thinks. So I go, "What do you like about our podcast?" And he's like, "I like the camaraderie. I like hearing about a group of men and a group of people that were all together, all had each other's back through all those years." And that's the appeal of listening to this,
Yeah, it was awesome that way. You're still brothers,
Yeah.
Even in our age difference now, we're still brothers that way, So,
I feel it.
Yeah.
I pushed away from it for a while, but later I had to go to the VA. I had, I get out on medical, and I hadn't claimed my VA for 20 years. And all of a sudden it brought the whole thing back to the front of my face, and,
Sure.
And all of a sudden I just started running into people, and we started doing huge meetups and stuff.
Right. Well, I'll be honest with you. My neighbor is a Marine, and him and I all often talk about it. And my other 2 Navy buddies, when we got out, we just put our sea bags in the closet and tried to forget it, And after about 10 years, should be proud of what we did,
For sure.
And then after Desert Storm, it seemed like people started realizing what they did to Vietnam vets, you know.
Yeah.
And man, you were a Navy cap now. People thank you for your service. Makes you feel good now.
You were being really picked on by the media and the people back then. I just can't imagine that. I'd feel so disrespected. I'd probably be getting in bar fights as a young, angry kid, knocking people out in the street. I could see that already. You know, I would be.
Yep.
But you said what?
Yep.
You know, that was just, I could see that. I'm too old for that now. I'm almost 50, but that's, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I could see that guy. I know the young man I used to be. I wasn't big on disrespect,
exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
That's what,
you're right.
So did that ever happen? Was there any skirmishes like that with your crew and, you know, protesting people or stuff like that?
No, not that I remember. I know one night we were in Guam and I had to stay on the ship for duty, and we were just there the one night, and a bunch of shipmates got in a fight with some Marines. So we had to leave.
I thought you were going to talk about the locals, because those Guamanian guys are huge. And, you know, my turn through Guam, and I have friends that are, you know, Guamanian, basically Americans, but, you know, from Guam. And I went to high school with them in Italy, and then they moved back to Guam, and I say hi to them on Facebook, and we still feel that bond, you know. But I pulled in there, and the captain's like putting out the report, like certain areas, be careful of this, you know, do not confirm or deny, or blah, 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 right? Whatever the rules of the road were for that port, right? And basically, we're in there, and he's like, be careful, don't go to Barney's Beach House, because, you know, they'll lure you down the beach and then beat the crap out of you and take your wallet or something. There was this, you know, bar on the beach that was all the ruffians. And these dudes were like, you know, 6'3", 6'4", 300, 500 pounds. Big, you know, big dudes, you know. And so they're like, be careful with some of the locals. It's been a little testy lately. So the first thing happens is me and my buddies get hammered on the base. And they're like, don't hitchhike. We're half in the bag and we're hitchhiking. There. We're hitchhiking right outside the base. Hey.
Here we go.
And this young Chamorro guy pulls over, and I'm like, hey, my friend, I have a proposition for you. If you show us around, we'll pay for all your drinks, all your food, and take care of you if you drive us and take us around and kind of like be our guide, man. He was like, sure.
Right.
So we got VIP treatment. Some guys get their coconut punched in by Barney's Beach House that didn't listen.
Yep.
Typical like Navy story.
If it's off limits, we're going there.
Right. Don't go over there. It's, you know, whatever. The people would just go there. But such a different time. You know, the Navy, you guys had beards. We weren't allowed to have beards. They started doing drug testing in the late 70s, 79, 80, I guess. So before that, nobody...
They did us too. Yeah, they did us too.
Oh, wow. I'm trying to track back when it was, because I don't know. I heard they weren't testing some places or somewhere for a while. And I'd hear old stories about sailors smoking weed at sea. And now that it's like out here it's legal out here, but go ahead.
Yeah, well, they smoked pot on the ship too, but you know, we weren't supposed to. But I think in 74 or so, we were headed back, and just before we got into San Francisco, they had a tug come out, and they had cops and drug sniffing dogs, and that's when they started drug testing.
I know why they did that. I mean, you know, have you ever seen the movie American Gangster?
No.
Okay, there was this guy out of like New York or Harlem somewhere, and he was dealing with all the army guys smuggling black tar heroin in the deuce and a halves and stuff. And I guess some people were smuggling dope back, you know, because Vietnam and some of those areas, that was the Golden Triangle. That was the big dope capital. So some guys would be opportunists. So that's probably why they did that.
I bet. I wouldn't doubt it.
I can't imagine.
Yeah,
that would have been, I mean, I'm not a big pot smoker or nothing. Maybe once or twice a year. I have no shame in that. But, cause it's basically legal where I live, but I used to feel like, oh my gosh, you're the devil if you do that growing up. It was so demonized. And, Might have made for a really cool ride out at sea. I don't recommend it though. I think it would have taken away your level of alertness for certain, you know?
Yeah, I didn't like the thought of that at sea. You know, you weren't prepared, or, you know, like you said, your awareness is gone, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I used to drink hard in port. I was a hard charger for the party, a little bit too much for the first few years. I got captain's mast a few times. Then I turned it around and became a 4-0 sailor, you know, and got sober.
Sure.
But even when I was drinking, when I went out to sea, I couldn't even imagine drinking at sea. It didn't even cross my mind. I go, it's dry out time. It's time to work. You know, I just adapted to my job, you know.
Let your body heal back up.
I mean, there was guys that were, and I was still trying to decipher this with another shipmate. Were they drinking the Listerine? You know, it's 37 proof.
Yeah, they didn't when I was there, but there was guys that did drugs and stuff, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Well, that was the age of Aquarius. Come on.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm just so curious about that time. I remember what I remember, but I mainly knew Army guys. So hearing it from the Navy guys, that was a different story. I would play football in Naples, Italy when I was in high school because we'd play against the different bases, Army versus Navy and stuff. And the Navy base was more liberal. They all had beer in the vending machines.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just the Navy guys just seem like more like, yeah, what's up, man? They just seem, they were a different breed than the Army guys seem more squared away. And the Navy guys back then seemed like just a bunch of like, yeah, I'm a sailor, you know?
Yep. Pretty much.
Pretty cool.
Not about that at all.
So you've been on cruises since getting out, huh?
One. Well, I just did one, yeah.
Just that one with your wife? So how often have you and your friends gotten together over the years? It's been like, geez, how many years is that?
Almost. I've been out for 41 years, so.
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't seen my quartermaster friend probably for 20 years, and then he came back, and we, of course, we talk a lot on the phone. And, you know, of course, the one friend's from Topeka, Kansas area, so we get together maybe once a year.
See, that's the part that I like. I mean, the ship's important, but like, what happened to the relationships, your friends? The ship has been gone. We saw the ship off. I get a call like 4 or 5 years ago, I forget exactly. Hey, the Mount Hood's going to be towed away out of the mothball fleet and chopped into razor blades in Texas. Come on through and wish her off. So there was my crew, you know, the 88 to 92 crew, and another guy from a different era was there. It was like 20 of us. We're out there drinking beer, hitting golf balls at the ship. And, we were being, the guys that were trying to they're like, stay away from it. Stay away from the ship. These civilian dudes were like, fuck you. That's our ship. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Yep.
You know nothing about it. And then the cops showed up and we told them what it was. And they're like, man, screw that guy. They were on our team.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, but that's kind of what kicked it off. And since then, we've had a reunion with like 125 shipmates last August. Yeah.
Cool.
We're going to do more.
Cool.
Be nice to get you out to one of them when we have one at different areas, if it's closer to you. I'm trying to just, wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Have
you joined AE Sailors?
I'm going to. Cool. I don't, the Mount Hood one is the main one that I'm on, but I'll go on there.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, because I'm the ship's coordinator for that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll join it then. Yeah,
great.
definitely. I'll definitely join that. I'd like to get more of your friends on the podcast too, and let them leave their legacy behind as well. You know.
Well, I'll tell you what. When we're done chatting here, I'll send my friends a text message and tell them to look for the podcast on Facebook and try to get them hooked up.
I'm gonna release this one in probably a week or two because I have like 5 or 6 backlogged. I release them like chapters, like once a week, or like episodes on TV. But it'll give me some time, and also I'm going to listen to the quality in case we have to do it over for any reason. But it started getting really clear towards the end here. But The only reason that you felt like I was talking over you because I didn't hear you as well. So you're like,
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. But now it got really good for some reason. But I think, it'd be cool to talk to one of the original signalmen. How cool is that? What I'm really trying to do is get the whole friggin' Mount Hood story as from its birth, 1972, 71, when you were on, when it was a new ship. I already talked to a kid. I'm going to meet him next week. He was on 98 to 99, the last years of the Mount Hood. They had stationed it in Bremerton, Washington. And it's crazy.
That would have been neat. That would have been neat to be up there.
I'll send you the podcast of that guy. I have 19 episodes out so far.
Oh, wow.
I have the former commander of Concord Naval Weapons Station for the Marines. I have my former ops boss. I got different rates, gunner's mates, EWs, bosun's mates. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll enjoy it. It's like, I think, when you start, to me, being the host, it's not about me. It's about us. And the more I get to talk to new people, I get to discover more about the ship. Like talking to you, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Cause I want to dig and excavate the whole history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. That's kind of like my intention. And, it would be cool to unify the Mount Hood is the only ship in the Navy that has this right now. And I'll help anybody else from any other ship that wants to get it off the ground. But meanwhile, this was the one I was on, and I'm the only guy that decided to do it out of 500 ships so far. So.
Wow. That's great. Wow.
Isn't that cool? So our ship gets to be first in the Navy for something. We weren't the sexiest battleship or carrier, but,
hey. No kidding. No kidding.
I joked with my friend. I said we were kind of like the El Camino of ships.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah.
So, but your friends, I mean, to get them, and it would be nice to have the complete 71 to 99 group just hang out. Someone's talking of one in Colorado, possibly a meetup there, or Texas. We did the last one. Yeah. Out in the bay where it's from, where the ship was from. So that was really cool because you had the environment where all those stories took place, right? But it's a little pricey out here too, though. It's very expensive.
Sure. Yeah.
It's Monaco.
I have a brother in Colorado and a family in Texas, so that'd be great.
Oh yeah. Would love to do it. And I appreciate you making the effort. I tried to get one of our bosuns that was on there, who was a real hardy Navy sailor guy, and shook a few, dirt bags a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's some people like, he's still the ghost in their dreams, I guess.
Yep.
But that's all good. I mean, he's like, I don't know what to do. And I go, well, I'll get to you, bosun. But look at you. You just jumped on there. You've been out of the Navy for 40 something years. You're like, yeah, I can handle that. Give it to me. Yeah, give me that rotor-reader or I'll make that podcast work.
You bet. Well, I'm glad we could do it, Len. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. So, definitely I'm going to stop this thing. I got to let it upload. So don't hang up yet.
Okay.
And your shipmates, what are their names? Because we'll just say hi to them on the podcast. Let them say hi.
Oh, sure. John Aiken is a signalman, and Chuck Panino's a quartermaster.
Right on. Guys that worked in my department, pretty much, or I worked in theirs. Why am I making it mine? I'm the junior one here.
Okay. You bet.